welcome back to my channel. My name is Paige and I have my mid-month wrap-up for you today. I'm filming this on March 17th. I wanted to get this out a couple of days ago, but my kids are out on spring break this week, so I just didn't get it filmed. I have read 10 books so far. I'm actually reading my 11th, but I'm not quite finished with it. So I have 10 books for the first half of March. So I started March off with Managed by Kristin Callihan. This is the second book in the VIP series. I absolutely adore the VIP series. I read the first book in February, and so I continued on with that series. This book follows Gabriel and Sophie. Gabriel is the manager for the band because this series follows this rock star band, and he is the manager for this band. And he is an Englishman, and he's very like, I guess he's grumpy. He's just very stoic and just like follows the rules, and he's to the T type of person. And he is on this flight. He has a lot of anxiety, especially with flying. He hates flying, but of course he has to do it a lot for his job. So he's on this flight. This girl is sitting next to him, which really perturbs him because he purchases the seat next to him so he doesn't have to sit beside anybody. When she was getting her ticket, she realized that she was bumped up to first class, so she is just loving it. She's having the time of her life sitting in first class on this plane, and she really helps him with his flying, his anxiety over flying. She just really brings a calm and peace and security to him. And then when they get off the plane, he kind of because she says that she's going for an interview, and he asks her who it is for, and it is for the his co-manager for the band. She's interviewing her as a social media type of person, that handles the band's social medias and all that. And so she's actually going to work for the band. And this is their romance, and I loved it so much. I listened to this on audiobook, and I loved the audiobook because I loved his voice. He has this English British accent, and I loved it so much. I really love the first book in the series, but I do love this one maybe more, or the same, but I think a tad more. This one was just wonderful. I love how she kind of broke down his walls, broke through his barrier, his cold exterior, and he completely melted for her. And I absolutely adore that in a book, and I rated this one 5 stars. Of course, I had to continue on in the series, so I read the third book in the VIP series, which is Fall, and this follows Jax. And he is one of the band members. He's kind of one of the, I guess he's kind of he's not the lead singer, but I think he sings. And he plays the guitar, and he helps write the songs. His name is actually Jax is his band name, but his real name is John. The band is Kill John from Callihan and John, and they're best buds. And Jax has really been through a lot. As we could see back from the first book, that he tried to commit suicide, which didn't work, and he had a long road, to recover from that. And now the band is back together, and he is better, but he deals with depression. And he meets Stella. She moves into the apartment next to him because she took a job as a pet sitter, not knowing it was for Callihan, because Callihan and his wife were away on a trip or honeymoon or something. So she was hired to be a pet sitter, and she is pet sitting for Callihan's animals. And Callihan and Jax live next door. So they're living next to each other, and they keep running into each other. They had a really funny meet cute when they're in the grocery store. They're both going for the same tub of ice cream, and he grabs it, and so she kisses him to steal the ice cream away. It was really funny. But that is kind of how they meet, and then their relationship goes from there. Very good, not quite as good as the first two, but I still really enjoyed it, and I gave it 5 stars. And then I had to read the last book in the series, which is Exposed, and this follows the bass player for the band. His name is Rye, and this is his romance with Brenna. Brenna is the other manager for the band. She works alongside Gabriel, and they co-manage this band. And Brenna and Rye have had this like ongoing hate to love relationship for so long. They are very much attuned to each other, very much just they have this great chemistry connection with each other, but they both fight it. And so they've always kind of like picked at each other, and just everybody thinks that like they hate each other, whereas it's like really the complete opposite. And this was their romance. It was cute. Like I said, these books really can't compete with the first 2 books of the series, but it is still such a great addition to the series. Then I picked up Wolf by Penelope Black. This is kind of a reverse harem. It's one girl with 3 guys, and this one kind of fell flat for me. It just was okay. So this girl is going to college. She's going to college with her cousins, and who also happen to be her best friends, and she gets a phone call from her mother one day saying that her mother, you know, she's now engaged, she's going to be married. So she goes back home. She hasn't seen her mother in like 10 years, and she doesn't have a really great relationship with her mother, and so she's hoping to kind of bond with her mother on this trip home. So when she goes back, her mother is like engaged to the head of like the Irish mafia. It's not really the homecoming that she was expecting. Her mother automatically leaves to like go, you know, to Ireland with her fiance, and so she is left at the house with her new 3 going to be stepbrothers. And of course this is their like romance, her romance with all 3 of them. I read the first one and I rated it 3 stars. I just wasn't sure if I was wanting to continue on with this series because it just fell flat a lot for me. I'm kind of over the whole stepbrother thing, and this is like it's like this book wanted to be taboo with, you know, possibly being stepbrothers without it actually being a stepbrother. And it's just, I don't know, it just did not, it wasn't great. And so it was just okay, so I rated it 3 stars. And then I read Overture by Skye, and sadly this one also kind of fell flat for me. I rated it 4 stars, even though 4 stars is still pretty good. It just lacks something in it, and I think this one lacks more backstory, more connection, because this is a guardian relationship. She falls in love with her guardian. He's been her guardian for 6 years. After her father died, she, you know, is left with no one, and he swoops in and like not adopts her but becomes her guardian. She is a violinist and she is very talented. She's like a genius, and she's gonna go on her first tour, and she's about to turn 18, and they take their relationship further. This has never been, you know, it's like only been recent that they've come to see attraction in one another, but and so they just happen upon it, you know, right before she leaves. And he kind of is, he's a military, so he's in the he used to be in the military, or is still in the military, and he like has his own operation company. I don't know, it's kind of confusing, but so he's very like very stoic, very cold, and so he kind of like sends her off on this tour, kind of telling her that she doesn't have to come back. And so that's kind of where it left off. I don't know, there's just not a whole lot of intrigue in me to begin the second book. I don't know if I will continue on in this series. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet. It wasn't the greatest. I wanted it to be more like Brianna Hill's The Protege. I really liked The Protege by Brianna Hill, and I thought that this was going to be sort of like it, and it is sort of like it, but it just lacks a lot of connection for me. I felt like we were just introduced to the characters and then they automatically wanted to hook up, and that's just, I needed more build up. So then I read the second book in the Brotherhood series, which this book follows the first book, Wolf, that I just previously mentioned, and this follows Elena with Wolf, Rush, and Sully. And I don't know, I tried with the series, but the second book was even worse than the first one. So I was like, nope. I finished reading it. I did not DNF it. I did finish reading it. I gave it 3 stars. It's just like over the top and just very juvenile feeling, and I just did not enjoy it. And so I will not be reading the third book in the series. And then I read Confess by Colleen Hoover. I've had this one on my TBR for so long, and I'm so glad that I finally read it. Of course, it's very emotional, as Colleen Hoover writes, and I'm just so happy that I read it. I rated it 5 stars, and this follows Owen and Auburn. The book starts off very emotional, super emotional. I mean, it's like the prologue is just made me cry, and I was kind of thinking, I'm like, I don't know if I can read this. I don't know if I'm ready to read something this emotional, but it does get better. Like, it's the main emotional part is at the beginning of the story, but we kind of see some history on Auburn, what she went through when she was a teenager, and then we like fast forward in when she's an adult, and she is working at a salon, but she's looking for like a kind of like a second job for more income, and she so happens upon this help wanted sign. He hires her immediately. He's an artist and he needs somebody. He has a showing that night, and the girl that was going to help him was his girlfriend, and they broke up, and so he has no one, so he hires her on the spot. But he does know her. He knows of her, and he does not tell her that he knows her. She works for him. They really hit it off great. They hang out after the art showing because they just want to spend time with each other. They have a great night. They agree to, go on a date, and he never shows up because something happened, and there is just so many secrets that he's holding. There's secrets that she's keeping from him, and I don't want to say too much because I don't want to ruin the book, but there's a lot that's going on, and she's kind of forbidden to see him because of something. He could mess something up in her life with some secrets that he's holding from her. So yeah, it was such a good book. I loved their story. Of course, it ends with a happily ever after, so don't worry. It does leave off with a great ending, but I love this one so much. I'm so glad I read it, and I rated it 5 stars. I've been super excited for this one. This is the new book by QB Tyler. This is Always Been You, and I was really hoping that it was going to be great, because the last book that I tried to read by QB Tyler I DNF'd, and I have read some books by her that I've loved and some that I haven't, so I was really hoping this would be one that I liked, and it just fell a little flat for me. I rated it 3 stars. This is a sister or stepbrother and stepsister romance, and she is adopted into their family like when she's 2 years old, so they've grown up together, and he is several years older than her, and he it kind of shows a little bit of their backstory throughout the book, but when she's around 15, I think, she starts developing this huge crush on him, and they've always been super close. Like, he would do anything in the world for her, and he adores her, she adores him, she looks up to him, like he is her idol. But she starts crushing on him, and when she I think when she turns 17, he starts seeing her in a new light, because he's been away at college, he's been away for a while, he hasn't seen her, and then all of a sudden his little sister is like grown up, and he's like, who is this? Super awkward to talk about. But anyway, I just wish there had been more connection between them. I felt like most of the book was just smut. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I wish there had been more build up between the characters, more angst. you really, for this type of trope, you really have to put in that angst, because then their relationship just doesn't feel believable. You kind of get a little bit of backstory, you know, some throwbacks, you know, but it just wasn't enough. There wasn't enough between these two characters to make it believable. I had high hopes for this one, but it just fell kind of flat, so I rated it at 3 stars. And then I read Always Meant to Be by Siobhan Davis. I absolutely love this one. There are a few things in here that are not my favorite, but still I rated it 5 stars. It was that good. It kept me so immersed in the story, kept me so entertained, and that is what I look for in a book. I want a book that I just cannot put down, and I want a book where I can believe in these characters. And this is an age gap with an older woman and younger guy. The only thing that really threw me off of this story was she had like noticed him for the first time when he was 15, and I'm like, oh, that's pushing it. That's really pushing it. And I almost stopped reading when I read that, but I kept on, and I'm glad I did, because it was a good book. I just wish Arthur had a put not such a young age, because it really, you know, she has a son. This is her son's best friend that she falls in love with, and it's like, I could not look at my son's best friend at 15. There's at all, really, but especially at such a young age, that just really makes me super uncomfortable. But they fast forward to when, you know, he's of age, over 18, and he is in his senior year. He's about to finish school. He doesn't have a good home life. He has a father who's very abusive to him and his mother, so he's kind of like well beyond his years in mentally. He has experienced so much more life, because life has kind of hardened him. And so he is best friends with West, which is Kendall's son. And so he comes over quite frequently, and he has a huge crush on Kendall. He absolutely adores her. And something that is kind of thrown into this book that I've never really seen before, except in fantasy, is their like soulmates, true soulmates that have been reincarnated. So like they've been partners in past lives, and each life as they reincarnate, they find each other. And so like even through everything, they always end up belonging to one another, and I really like that aspect of it. I've only ever seen that in fantasy, so that was kind of an interesting part to this book. So it's like, even though they have quite a bit of an age difference, they're soulmates, and they're together in each life they have. So that was very interesting to read about. And so Kendall has 3 kids. Her marriage is completely shattered, and she is divorcing her husband, and there's a lot that goes on in this book. His dad is like a psychopath. He is trying to ruin his son's life, his wife's life, and he's like blackmailing everybody. So it's really hard for Kendall and what's his name? Vander. It's really hard for Kendall and Vander to be together when there's so many odds against them. So this was their like fight to be together, and of course she is trying to deny this connection and chemistry that they have because of the age gap, and she has a son like his age. So it was very interesting. I really enjoyed it. I rated it 5 stars, even though it had a little hiccup in it. I wish the author would have done it a little differently, but other than that, I really enjoyed it. It kept me entertained, and that's what I look for in a good book. And then the last book for this mid-month wrap-up is Finding Kyler by Siobhan Davis. I really wanted another good book by Siobhan Davis after I finished reading the previous one. I picked this one up. I saw it was the beginning of a trilogy, so I picked it up, and it just fell flat for me. I rated it 3 stars. This is about a girl named Faye, and her parents they die in a car crash. They were hit by a drunk driver and they died in the car crash, and she is 17, almost about to turn 18, but she is a minor, and her parents left it in their will that her uncle take her in when they die. So he lives in America, she lives in Ireland, she's Irish, and he takes her, he is her mom's brother, and he takes her in. Him and his wife have, I think, 7 boys, and automatically the one that she's most drawn to, you know, is kind of like pushes her away and tells her, you know, like she doesn't belong there and all that. But a couple of her cousins immediately, you know, take her under their wing, and she's going through this grief of losing her parents, but also, you know, living this new life in America, and she is trying to adjust to this new life, but she is drawn to Kyler. He's the one that appears that he doesn't like her, but in retrospect he does, but he feels like she's too good for him. And it goes on. This kind of leaves off, this book does leave off on a huge cliffhanger. But I don't know if I'm going to continue reading it, because I kind of looked at the reviews on Goodreads, and I feel like this series is just huge, like drama filled and full of unnecessary drama and unnecessary angst, and I don't know if I'm gonna continue reading on in this series either. I just don't know. I have read some good books this half of this month, but I've also read some very mediocre books, and I just don't like to waste my time reading things that I don't particularly enjoy or like. Oh, I also DNF'd one book, and I don't know if I'm going to pick it up. I would like your guys' opinion. I DNF'd Sweet Home by Tillie Cole. I know it makes me so sad that I DNF'd a Tillie Cole book. I really had high hopes for the series, but I started reading this, and I'm like not even 10% into it, and I'm like, I can't take it. I cannot read this. So if you've read this book, and if it gets better, please let me know, because I kind of wanted to read it because it's Tillie Cole, and I absolutely adore some of her other books, but this book is about a girl who moves from England, and she moves to Alabama in the United States to attend the University of Alabama. And as I was reading this, I was like, this doesn't sound believable. So I went on to Goodreads to kind of see what the reviews were saying. And a lot of people love this book. But there were reviews that were like 1-star reviews. And I totally could understand what they were talking about. How it didn't make sense that she's this undergraduate student who moves, and she's the TA. So she is automatically dissed by a student in the class. And they said that totally isn't realistic, because a student would not like just blatantly put down the TA, because the TA is usually who grades the papers. They wouldn't be trying to join the fraternity, because she and two of her friends, they're trying to join this fraternity because her friend wants to be a cheerleader, and they said at this time of the year football would already be underway. So the cheerleaders would already like be picked out, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And why would they want to join in their senior year? And then there was one of her friends is plus size, and there was really negative. She was just written in a really poorly way, and I didn't like how she was portrayed. Like they were trying to wear these costumes to this fraternity party, and they said that she had to be catapulted into her costume, and and she's like near 300 pounds, and she had to be catapulted into her toga, and I'm like, that just didn't sit well with me. I don't like hearing negative things about somebody's body in any type of way, and I just this book was just not doing it for me. I don't know if it would get better. I decided just to quit reading it at that moment and picked up something else. But if it does get better, let me know. Or should I keep it in my DNF pile, or should I continue to pick it up? Because there are other books in this series that I really wanted to read, and so I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet if I will forever keep it in my DNF or not. So let me know if you've read it. So those are the books that I have read in the first half of March. Let me know what you've been reading. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.